So, with the passage of time, when say um, when Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi was written by Ziauddin Barni, there was a different kind of society. There was a different kind of polity. So his writings would be addressing those things in the 14th century. Subsequently, when we travel from 14th century to 16th century, when Akbarnama is composed, you will find the narrative is going away from what was the concern of the 14th century historian. Then again you come to 19th century. I am taking a very fast jump. You come to 19th century, there are two sets of people. One is the Indians. They are looking at Britishers. Dadabhai Naoroji is there. So he is looking at Britishers, their rule, and he is finding that the poverty of India is largely because of the un-British rule of India. So his perception is different. And then when we come to World War First, our perceptions are bound to be different from what was the perception of history in the early 14th century or even earlier during Ashoka's time. Then after this, what I mean to suggest is that with the passage of time, with each passage of time, with century, I would say, the perception of history will keep on changing. There will be more additions to our perceptions. There will be more sub-subjects which will start attracting your attention and which will try to attract and come to the central part of your text. Because then you will find that, look here, this is very important. Others did not consider it. The best example, for example, I will give is between two centuries. French Revolution occurring in 1789 and then Russian Revolution occurring in 1970. Both are dealing with societies. 1789, French Revolution that swept away feudal rights, abolished the feudal rights of the landlords, and they also, appropriated the landed properties of the exiles and suspects. Even church property was confiscated, some of them. Till you have not come to 1917, and when you are comparing the achievements of the French Revolution in that particular time context, then you will find that these are drastic things. Monarchy has been challenged. So, they used to consider the property rights to be inviolable, something which nobody could think of. They were appropriated by the others, by this third estate. So they were abolished. Tithe and corvée and all those things were discarded. No, this cannot be. This is not allowed. Now, French Revolution, when French Revolution is taking place in England, France, in England also there were people who were looking at France. They are, there is one channel which is separating them, but they were looking at these things. So in Britain, what happened was that enclosure movement was taking place, 18th century. Parliamentary enclosure movement had come. So there was vast scale displacement of the rural peasantry who were earlier independent peasants. First they were reduced to the status of tenants by the capitalist farmers, and then subsequently they were reduced to the status of tenants at will. And a time came when it was found that their profit will further be compromised if they don't evict this entire population, which is not useful for their capitalistic agriculture. They drove them away from the villages. They were the original inhabitants of those villages. They were driven off. So when they looked at French Revolution and its assault on property rights and other things, they did not like French Revolution. So you see, the period is same, but the perceptions are different. So they had a very different perception of French Revolution. Therefore, what we find is that there are three kinds of, approach towards French Revolution. Number one, They described various agrarian measures adopted by French Revolution. As I said, in the case of British historians or British perception, they considered it as insufferable attacks on property. This should not have happened, according to them. Because before that, they had seen the War of Roses, and the landlords, their rule was strengthened, their hold on the society had strengthened. So, with the Tudors, you will find the monarchy was taking some step towards centralization of authority. He was the one who created central army. He was the one who started passing navigation acts and other things in order to ensure that, the trade and commerce flourishes. Because he was finding that agriculture is not the only solution for the wealth of a nation in terms of Adam Smith, I am saying. That those historians who are sympathetic towards French Revolution, like you and me, we will acclaim this as introducing unprecedented agrarian transformation in the French society, which was not conceivable before French Revolution. Now, the vast majority of the peasants, when they claimed the land, those lands which I told you, 3 categories of land, they became independent proprietors of land. Who could think of them becoming proprietors of land? So, this was considered in that particular period of time as a major achievement of the humanity. Then third strand of people, they think that, well, did all the peasants of France get all the land? Then our answer would be no. Limited number of peasants. So, where is the general benefit then? So, general masses of peasantry did not benefit from this achievement. Some of them did find some benefit. So, their question is that if there were some gains, these gains were of very limited nature, gains of the poorer peasants and landless laborers, they were not concerned. So, by 1917, you find another revolution is taking place, which we call Bolshevik Revolution of Russia, 1917. Now, and this is, the credit goes to Mark Bloch, it is not me or anybody else. Mark Bloch, when he is writing his book, French Rural History, 1929-31, after the, this revolution has taken place, he compares the two events, and he says that, French Revolution in comparison to Russian Revolution loses much of its sheen, much of its luster, because French Revolution, he finds, had a very limited catalogue of achievements in comparison to the Russian Revolution. What happened was, to him it appeared that French Revolution was a continuation of the previous, relationships, rather than a violent break, rather than a thorough break from the previous past, immediate past. So, he finds that in comparison to Russian Revolution, it was a continuation of the thing. Although in his French rural history, he is not mentioning, as I am saying this, that he is not mentioning Soviet revolution as such. But now the question arises, had he been writing French rural history before 1909-11, could he thought of the achievements of Russian Revolution when it has not happened? He was a very intelligent historian, we all know. He was very, profound, and he was very mature historian. But you can't imagine something which is going to happen in future. So, he was still, 8 or 9 years away from Soviet Revolution or Bolshevik Revolution. So had he been writing, this is my poser, this is the question I am posing to you. Had he been writing in 1909-11, when this Bolshevik revolution has not occurred, he would not have had this perception of change. So, or, so what happened was that with Russian Revolution, suddenly a drastic change occurs in Russian society. The state is occupied, the state power I mean, is occupied by the working class, which was inconceivable before the Russian Revolution. We have never heard in history that a labor has become, a worker has become the ruler. There are some stories in Panchtantra where a weaver has become a ruler, but those are stories. Here this is happening on mass scale. They are also historical, we can find history in them. I don't deny that. So the state abolished all states. The Kulak class were decimated. The big landlords, they were decimated on large scale, not just a few number of them. And then working class, the proletariat is occupying the political power. Now with the occupation of political power by this proletariat resulted in absolute reorientation of the polity. Now everything was to be thought in terms of the benefit or loss of the working class. So there is a whole set of a big, huge difference. So when you compare this with French Revolution will pale into insignificance. You will find that, look here, up till now we were saying that this was such a big movement, such a drastic thing which had happened. Now in front of what Mark Bloch is finding, we are finding that it is gradually declining and going into the background. So that is what I mean by, with the changing passage of time, our perception of history also changes. Therefore, writing history is a continuous process. Then the question arises, what is the purpose of doing this exercise? What is the purpose of reading at all? Now in this age of WhatsApp, this question becomes more relevant. So do you think, or should I think, that whatever is put on WhatsApp, can they be verified? Who will verify? And who is behind them, planting those stories? Most of them are, we are living in the age of half-truth. That makes our task more difficult to glean, the history of circulation of absolutely bogus material in the society. Therefore, the question arises, what is the use of history? In other words, when we are looking at the past, we have certain objective. We hope, and we have tried, the historians have tried. So there are many historians all over the world who have tried. They have tried to look at the question of utility of, looking at history. What is the use of history? The most basic aspect of historical fact is that there should be a consensus among historians about a fact, about a particular statement which is occurring in any of our sources, whether they are stone inscriptions, copper plate inscriptions, inscriptions located. In that way, our country is very lucky, especially when I visit South Indian temples. I have seen inscriptions written on the floors of those temples or the walls of those temples. So if you take any of these inscriptions, and we will be not correct in saying that it has all the information about the time. They have some information about some aspects of that time. When I say that, take any event, and there should be a general consensus that, look here, this thing had happened. Now, since we are in an age of, as I said, half truth or post truth, now you are hearing many films are also made in which it is depicted that, contrary to what we have understood up till now through our rigorous exercise in history writing, they make a film and put a challenge to us. They said that, Alexander was defeated by Porus. Nowhere in any inscription, literature, whether of Greeks or us, it is mentioned. So there cannot be a general consensus on that. Suppose, Battle of Panipat took place in 1526, and you say that, it is not Babur who won, it was Ibrahim Lodi who won. No, this will not be accepted because there can't be general consensus on that. So, there are certain facts which are infallible facts. You can't manipulate those facts. There is a general consensus of historians over that point, that Battle of Panipat did take place in 1526. Subsequently, 2 more Battle of Panipat. They are well dated. There should be no controversy over it. So they should be taken as the true statement of the past. Now, another very difficult task before historian is how to arrive at such a general consensus about what is truthful in what we say about the past. What is truthful? Why should I believe one version? Why should we? Then this would mean that about a single event which has occurred, there is no consensus about what it means, how you interpret that event. But the question arises at the most basic level is it possible to get at the truth of the past? To establish the truth of historical description, it demands that there should be an assumption that the world of the past is an extension, as I mentioned this, the world of the past is an extension of the present everyday world and conceived of it in the same terms. What do I mean by that? When we are dealing with past, anything of the past, you will perceive that only when in the present those things are relevant. So you trace that, how far we can go. There are many countries who say that, right from ancient times, we believed in democracy. That, as a historian makes me laugh. I put a question mark to that. Was there a parliament? Was there elections? Were there institution of elections there? If, just sitting in a corner, all people will not come, but if a sizable section of people have participated in a meeting, that cannot be considered democracy. Democracy is a well-defined concept. Therefore, the historian's problem is this, that he has to take this into question. So the question arises how to accept one version of the past, as I said again, that it once existed. For example, is it possible to have a direct access to its truthfulness? Is it possible? Then the empiricist school will say that if you are, just reproducing the fact, this is possible. But the question again will arise, as I said, those 3 points are raised, that should we extract one fact away from that context and consider that to be true. In order to understand the relevance and the meaning of the fact, we will have to look into that age. In which age this statement was made? So that becomes important for a historian. You will have to, in order to look at truthfulness, just the evidence in itself is not self-sufficient. As we say that the words, they have certain meanings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meanings. Look at any dictionary, any word will have more than one or more than one meanings, multiple meanings. So, as a historian, what would be our approach? We would say that had the words been self-eloquent, there would not have been so many meanings. You turn the pages of dictionary, the word would say that, look, this is the meaning of this word. This doesn't happen. So facts are like that. They will not speak about themselves. You will have to invoke your epistemological knowledge about your perception of the past. Therefore, there is a growing number of historians who do not consider either their method or language capable of representing the past accurately. Linguistic rigor I was talking about. So, if you remain confined to their language of the facts, or representation of the past, you will find that they are not capable. You will have to interpret them. So, on interpretation I will speak in the next lecture. Therefore, what I find is there is a kind of oxymoron of truthful interpretation, and at the same time it is increasingly contested. They are very now in the postmodern historiography, they have come out with a new concept, that they are very close to empiricist in that sense. Not exactly, but they are, because they are saying that when you are reading a text, then you are extracting certain meaning from the text. So they are saying that particular text, one text, can have varieties of meanings depending upon the perception of the historians who is looking at that. It may mean something different to someone different than what you are perceiving from the text. Text is same. It can have a variety of meanings. No problem with that. So, in other words, what I want to emphasize is that there cannot be a simple fact which this empiricist school are hammering at. So, conventionally, traditionally, normally or generally, the historical truth is a matter of what is historical truth? Is a matter of correspondence between description and discoverable and verifiable facts. Take any example, any event or a process or a piece of social action. French Revolution we just talked about, Russian Revolution we just talked about. Any of these occurrences, there would be two or three things I spoke about, that the description, there should be a correspondence, there should be a relationship between description and discoverable and verifiable facts. This could be discovered, this could be deciphered, this could be verified. It should not be, elusive, that I read that text and after that nobody will read that text. Then it is not a historical fact, even if it is. Because the subsequent historians or your contemporary historians, they are not accessible. So, how can you depend on the interpretation of one historian who had by chance, consulted that? And after that, the source has disappeared. So, that will create a problem for us. Similarly, as I said that there should be a correspondence between reality and description For example, I was giving the example of Battle of Panipat. Let us make it a broader thing. Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Who will doubt this? Who will say that Battle of Battle of Waterloo took place in 1917? Will there be anyone accepting this version? Nobody will accept, because there is already a general consensus that this event did take place, and this event did take place in a particular historical period. So there can't be two opinions about that. I was telling you about Alexander defeating Porus. Now, in the films they are saying different things. This reminds me of another, because the films are so dominating our thought process. There was a film called Mughal-e-Azam, in which Jodhabai was depicted as Akbar's wife, which is historically inaccurate. Jodhabai was the wife of Jahangir. Now, most of the people will believe in this popular version that, look here, in this film it is shown like this. So, in the text, if you are finding that there is no general consensus on a particular fact, those facts are challenged and they are not acceptable to historians because of various reasons. So, all historians and sources should agree on that particular point, on that particular event, that particular description. Therefore, in other words, historical fact is a referential point, referential single truth. You can refer to that, look here, in 1917, Russian Revolution had taken place. You can't say that Russian Revolution had taken place in 1905 or in 1896. Nobody will believe that. So, that will not be acceptable. So, there should be conditional statement about the actuality of the event, of the real world, and it should remain unaffected by any description of that event. Adverse, description, contrary description, I mean. If you are giving contrary description and there is the sources are before us, so we can ascertain, we can verify, and we can come to the conclusion that your assessment is not correct, meaning thereby your reading is not correct. So, you can easily challenge that, and no serious historian will pay credence to this version. They will all go by a general consensus. Our country got independence in 1947. There are people who are saying that we got independence afterwards. Nobody will believe that. This is happening. So, we have to have certain facts which, as I said, have the character. All facts are not historical facts. So, we are dealing with facts. So, facts is the central feature of historical study. So, we are concerned with that. As I said, that Ranke was telling us how the things really were. So, as I said in the beginning, that Ranke's this postulation did remain very effective for a very long time. It is still holding some ground, but now there is a change. There is a change. Why? Because now we are finding more and more sources are coming to our disposal. Then there are many sources which are coming to our disposal. Why I am saying this? We would have never known what kind of society is reflected in these inscriptions. Inscriptions were there. They were sources. Similarly, a large historical puzzle still persists. The Indus scripts, we haven't deciphered them. There are all kinds of guesses and speculations, especially by Ascopercola and Hermeta and others. But what we find is that once it is discovered or discovered they are, if once they are deciphered properly, then they will change our perception of the time of Indus period. Therefore, the heavy emphasis of the empiricist school was that we should remain closer to what they perceived as fact. Now, here I would stop. because now will come the domain of interpretation of facts, which I will take up in the subsequent lecture. Thank you very much.